Your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
To clarify a few things, this took place in Europe. I was a salaried employee, 40 HR/week. I left that job about 10 months after the event took place. I didn't get into trouble, and nobody tried to fire me. My probation period was over, and we have employment laws regarding constructive dismissal, so I knew their hands were tied. About 4 years back, I started a new banking job. All was well, just that the management was pretty strict with timekeeping, which was weird as we were back office. My experience was in a similar field at another bank, and we had flexible schedules and received time in lieu. But rules are rules, so I followed them. I learned my tasks and got to know the wider team. Anyway, about 4 months in, I started to realize my senior manager didn't like me. I'm pretty assertive as a person, and I do know how to stand up for myself. He hated it. I would speak up during the meetings, ask questions, give suggestions, and so on, while the team would stay quiet. The week everything went south, I was working overtime, which was obviously unpaid. On Thursday, I did nearly 2 hours of overtime. On Friday, I thought I'll leave a few minutes early as I was done for the week. My manager was off. I left 10 minutes early. On Monday, I come to work, and I got called into a meeting straight away. There were 3 of us in the room, myself, my manager, and my senior manager. Our conversation went as follows. My manager: I heard you left work early on Friday. Me, I did. I left 10 minutes early. Did you ask for permission to leave early? Me: it was 10 minutes. You know I did about 4 hours of overtime last week. Why are we having this conversation? Senior manager: because you left early without asking for permission. As a senior, you should be setting an example for the rest of the team. Me: is this a joke? Your working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., not 9 a.m. to 5:50 p.m. You shouldn't leave early without asking for your manager or my permission first. Is that clear? Me: got it. It's perfectly clear. I listened and started coming into the office at 9 a.m. and leaving at 6 p.m. on the dot. At first, they didn't realize what was happening, but the week after the meeting was the last week of the month. And let's say the last week of the month was intense, especially the final day. The reports had to be completed, signed off, and submitted before the month's end. We covered multiple jurisdictions and would deal with Southeast Asia in the morning and the Americas in the evening. Our team was expected to work overtime due to this. Here comes Friday, the last day of the month. Showtime. I'm at my desk at 9 a.m. sharp. Most of the team have already been at the office for at least an hour. I, of course, have a cup of coffee from the cafeteria because I was a bit early. My manager looks at me and raises his eyebrow, but he doesn't say anything. Work, work, work. Break time. We had 2 20-minute paid breaks and 1 hour unpaid lunch. I'm the only person to go on my break. Lunchtime. Everyone was eating at their desks while I go to meet my friends for lunch. On the second break, I once again leave my workplace and go for a short stroll around. Back to work. About 5:45 p.m., I get a call from one of the senior managers in the U.S. She needs the report amended. There were 4 of us on that call. I'm doing the amendments as we speak and closely monitoring the time. I see it's 2 minutes to 6 p.m., 1 minute, 6 p.m. SM2 * rambling about the report. Me: apologies, but I have to stop you right here. SM2: yes? Me: it's 6 p.m. here. My day is over. SM2: huh? Me: as per my management, my working hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., so I must leave now. Have a great weekend and we'll catch up on Monday. I logged off, got my coat, wished everyone a great weekend, and left. It was 6:04 p.m. Both my manager and my senior manager were dumbfounded by what has happened, looking pale and stare at me in disbelief. It was a glorious sight. I wanted to apologize to my senior manager that I wasn't able to leave at 6 p.m. on the dot, but I thought that would have been way too passive-aggressive, so I just left. I relaxed the rule a bit after a few months, yet I never did more than 30 minutes of overtime. Ironically, once my stakeholders understood that I will not be available for 10+ hours, they started collaborating earlier in the month. I would have most of my reports done and submitted by the last day of the month. Boss agrees with secretary that I am not the office manager, so I stopped managing the office. When I was doing my articles at a small law firm, internship to be admitted as an attorney, I was the go-to person for everything at the office. Setting up computers, buying stationery, paying bills, going to court, seeing clients, etc. After being admitted as an attorney, I continued doing all this because the secretary only did about 20% of what a secretary would usually do and refused to do anything else. My boss does some shady business, don't pay taxes, etc. So he couldn't just fire her for fear of her ratting him out. He also never disciplined her. We are not in the US. Since we worked from my boss's mother's house, the secretary also spent about 50% of her day just chatting to his mother, and they became fast friends. Guess who was always the evil one that everyone ganged up on? Yours truly. I was made out to be incompetent at my job, and I used to cry a lot and almost became an alcoholic from work stress. One day the secretary got really upset with me after I asked her to buy stationery since we didn't even have staples, and after a heated argument told me that I'm not the office manager and should stop lording it about it as if I was. Bear in mind, I was her senior both as an attorney and a number of years worked at the firm. My boss did nothing and rather got upset with me, and so did his mother. I decided there and then I am done doing both secretary work and my attorney work because I was working roughly 60 hours per week, standard is 40, trying to get everything done without receiving overpay. The unemployment rate in my country is around 30%, and in the legal field, supply of lawyers exceeds demand. She knew this, and my boss knew this, but no one cared that I was basically working myself into an early grave. Cue malicious compliance. If everyone agrees that I am not the office manager, then I will stop managing the flow of the office and only do my attorney work. I stopped paying the bills, buying the stationery, reminding my boss of important meetings, etc. Within 2 weeks, the electricity was cut off for 10 days because it wasn't paid, and my boss's elderly mother and the rest of his family had no electricity. We could also not work for those 10 days. Once the electricity went on, the phone lines were cut because of non-payment. We could again not work. The post piled up, there were no stationery. We couldn't do service of court documents because our service providers cut us off. It went on for weeks. I simply worked around the issues and sorted my life out. One example. When the Wi-Fi was off, I used my cell phone to hotspot my laptop without telling anyone. In the end, my boss and his mother begged me to do what I used to do, but I refused. Since I was focusing more on my actual work, my fees increased and my pay increased as well. Shortly thereafter, I moved away from that office to our secondary office and worked alongside lovely colleagues who all did what they got paid to do. I have been at this new office, same firm, just a different location, for the last 2 years.
You say that you order is less than a kilo? Let's weigh it.
A bit of background. I own and operate a BBQ and grill restaurant. We run a special promotion for the euro. We have a promotion for 1 kg of skewers, pork or chicken, for €6.50. This happened on Saturday night. A group came to watch the match between Belgium and Portugal. One of them is a guy known to almost of the restaurant owners in town. Let's call him Dick. Dick has a tendency to complain about the food in order to get freebies, either something extra or the whole order. They place their orders, and about 20 minutes later, they're served. A few minutes later, my head server, Mary, comes inside. Sit-downs are only permitted on the patio due to the pandemic. Furious. Mary, give me the scales! Me, slightly confused. I was sweating over the grill since we had a lot of orders. What for? Mary, just give me the fucking scales! I give her the electronic scales, she grabs an empty plate and heads outside. I follow her because I know that something is up. She goes to the group that includes Dick, puts the scales on the table and proclaims, "Let's weigh them!" You see, Dick had ordered the promotion and then said that his order was missing almost half of it and demanded 4 more skewers to make it correct. His words. Now, in almost any other place, he would be probably right. Most of them buy their skewers already made, and they weigh between 100 to 120 grams, which means that a kilo is usually 10 skewers. But we prepare our skewers in-house and are much bigger, between 180 to 220 grams, which is written on the menu, so our kilo is usually 6 of them. So, basically Dick was demanding almost another kilo of meat for free. Dick, smugly, "Yeah, let's weigh them and then you can bring what you still owe me." Mary grabs the skewers and a fork and starts removing pieces of meat and placing them on the scales. Initially, Dick has a very smug smile, but he starts to frown when 3 skewers are emptied and the scales shows more than half a kilo of meat. Finally, with the second piece from the 5th skewer, the scales shows just above a kilo. Mary, holding the remained skewers and smiling smugly. "It seems you were right about the order not being correct. We put more. I'll take those," waving the skewers in her hand, "back to the kitchen. Enjoy your food." Mary returned smiling to the kitchen and put the skewers aside, while Dick ate his kilo of meat sullenly and the rest of his group smirking.